Hello guys and gals of YouTube. This is my new series called Haunted Gaming. Before I start this episode, I want to tell you what Haunted Gaming is all about. So, basically I talk about creepy pasta related to video games, and my first episode is Warframe Infection. But yeah, let's start. This one is called Warframe Infection. Very diseased pasta. For context, this version of Warframe takes place on update 8, which is a long time ago. To give you context, Warframe now has like 200 updates or something. But out to the pasta. As an avid gamer, I'm always looking for a new experience, a new creative breakout that shows a group of persons' dedication and drive to a project. Among good gameplay and details, it's why I'm still relatively active in many of the more unique online games, such as Iron Grit Marauders and Firefall, whereas others would have gotten bored after development stagnation sets in. This is where I ran into the game Warframe, a co-op shooter based on an original design of the game Dark Sector. I was fascinated with the game, and when I was allowed into closed beta, I was ecstatic. For several months, at least a few hours a day, I spent my days running on walls, gunning down enemies, and slicing my way through robots, all after the shiny carrot of expanding my play area and powering my characters. Unfortunately, a short break happened where I was busy with real-life obligations, forcing me to shorten my play sessions to a mere crawl whenever I had time. It wasn't until Update 7 hit where I was able to return to my latest hobby. Luckily, during the time I had been away, I focused on creating another Warframe, essentially your character skills and stat direction. During that time, leaving me with a clean slate of my new Ember Warframe to explore the changes. Motherfucker! After a short jaunt through Minkery to boost my combative capabilities and get used to my character's more close-range loadout, I decided that as I was simply trying to grind this character out anyway, I would use the opportunity to gather materials for another new Warframe. To pass the time by and give me a goal. You have to understand, when Update 7 was launched, even those that had been closed beta longer than I had was in a similar boat, left with pages upon pages of expensive to use fusion cores and no actual mods to equip on gear. A lot of Warframe's power progression desperately relies on these mods to make your character more survivable and damage output skyrocket. As a result, I wasn't too keen on trying my luck with moving to the later sectors with tougher enemies, as even my fully leveled Volt could do little at his current state. As a result, I set my sights on a level in the Venus sector, a mission that featured the infested enemies in a captured mission type E-Gate. I believe the location was. I also decided to do the mission slow, as I figured that the sheer amount of new players the switch to open beta would bring would be your average rush for the exit for the end of the game rewards type, instead of checking every container my grading measures aimed for. Besides, Ember was an anti-infested frame in all regards, right? Even still, the infested always, I don't know, creeped me out when I learned of the lore. I get hints of it every so often, but took to finding a gathering place of lore on the forums to get the true picture. The infested, otherwise known as the Technocyte Plague, were a biological weapon created ages ago by the allies of the player race ages ago, has gone rogue, infesting sector after sector and corrupting the other two enemies of the setting, a clone soldier Grenier and the mostly robotic Corpus proxies into hellish, monstrous alien life, and seeks nothing more than to incorporate all matter into them. Even still, in the game, the creepiness of the infested was only a backseat attraction, and gameplay is actually more enjoyable when fighting them instead of the other races, which cling to cover as soon as a tenno sneezes in the wrong octave. And after all, it's just a game. Couldn't really do anything, right? As I started the mission, watching Ember drop from the convenient ventilation shafts the PCs always spawn from, nothing was out of the ordinary for the mission. An enemy-involved corrupted mess infesteds work scattered walls, floors, and ceilings, and strange lights fitted about in the area randomly, as if insects were drawn to the various pockets of biomatter. The level progressed as normal, with the infested occasionally appearing here and there, swiftly being met into the end of my shotgun or recently acquired Leto Vandal. I was being smart about clearing the squad that had spawned before moving on. I hadn't noticed them, but in retrospect, I believe there was something odd, as if the hordes were more intense, but more spread apart. I remember marveling at my good fortune being able to loot in relative peace, but each fight slowly whittled my health under my shields. My looting habits, however, ensured I ran into a nice supply of health and energy to keep myself alive. Eventually, I reached my destination, a Corpus crew member, in his usual room, ready for me to gun him down, and for lack of a better term, download him into the Lotus network for whatever enigmatic helper wished of him. It was a simple matter. One shotgun blast and he was down, then a quick press of the X key, and he was gathered. I was prepared for the slow, profitable run to the exit. And then suddenly, Lotus's image popped up, seeing that the mission had changed and now I had an extermination orders. That wasn't surprising, however. That would come for the Lotus to suddenly add a second objective or sometimes change the objective entirely, especially the latter for extermination. What was odd, however, was two things. First I heard a great many of cries of infested enemies, more than I was used to hearing, and then there was a counter for the targets. Enemies left. 666. By far more than usual for this type of mission, which the most I've seen hitting to around 120 or so. The next few moments were pure chaos. The room I had found the captive in was a dead end. There was no real escape. If that truly was the amount of monsters coming, gritting my teeth, I started spawning my capabilities as the horde began. Endless streams of the infested trash mobs rushed forward, only to be met by the deadly flames that I conjured. But the horde kept coming again. My health was whittled down again and again. My shield would deplete only to get a small reprieve, as I busted more spells to give me a short reprieve. However, that is when the ancients came. Great brute enemies, terrifying for lower equipped players like I had become. As the counter reached 300, several ancient disruptors, those that drain a player's shield and energy, charged into the room, as well as several more trash mobs. It took just one strike to me, draining my energy, my one source of solace in a strange glitch of a Zerg rush, for lack of a better term, gone. It only took a few seconds before my health reached rock bottom. And then the oddness continued. Instead of immediately ragdolling, my character fell back, as if there was others in the game. But that was impossible. I was playing solo. There was none there to revive me. It shouldn't have downed me. I took the opportunity to keep attacking, fighting until my pistol ammo was dry. As the beast scattered closely around my downed character, it was hard to even see my character at this rate, due to all the bodies and entities in this room. As I watched the timer finally hit 0, I was yet again surprised as the creatures, for no discernible reason, suddenly moved slowly out of the room. And then my character started to get on her feet. Not the backflip like when revived, or even getting up when started or knocked down. No, she slowly staggered up, movements jerking, body twitching regularly, as if drunk or injured. As Ember finally got to her feet again, she suddenly convulsed, her model twisting and writing. I watched her horror as the suit that made her frame tore, revealing pale, sickly skin just like the infested. Several tears had outcrops of the infection were about, twisting into macabre shapes as they hung from her body. Her shoulders swelled, leaving her in a hunched form, and then slowly she would grow idle, grasping the shotgun and holding it limply after it had fallen to the floor with her change. In shock, I let go of the mouse, accidentally bumping it and see the camera swivel. I seemed to have control again, but a part of me was wanting to escape the game, to not continue. However, greed got the better of me. My resources and money were low, and I desperately needed to strengthen my characters with new changes to the game. Trying to hold back my confusion on what just happened, I slowly moved my character out of the room that should have been a death. As I began to move this infested ember, Lotus once again came out with a radio message, claiming the enemies of the ship needed to be purged. The message, however, was garbled with static, an effect I had never seen in the game before. But at this rate, that was par for the course, as something specifically wrong was going on. Part of me was trying to rationalize this as some sort of surprise new feature, something that was snuck in with low bravado, like the mysterious shade that had started showing up before the patch. But it just felt too scripted, too unnatural in the game's mechanics. As I moved forward, I was greeted not by infested, but by armored Grenier, as I headed on this new mission. Finally, something that was entirely breaking of the game. Sometimes in missions, the enemy palette can swap, leading to a character that particularly over-specialized for enemies that normally appear to be at a disadvantage. Although it didn't usually happen this early in the solar map, luckily whatever plague that happened to my character wasn't inhibiting the character's standard combat abilities, allowing me to attack them back. After the first wave of Grenier, I noticed again an oddity. Usually when fighting the more humanoid enemies, they'll spout various trash talk or combat quotes, such as announcing that they're reloading, they've spotted the player, or commenting that they think they have them surrounded. On the situation, until they spotted Ember directly, they did the same thing. However, as soon as they spotted her, the vocals changed. Upon first contact, one would scream, "Don't let it escape." As one ducked below cover, before I mercilessly ran around it with my melee, I heard him whimper, "Oh God!" As I struck another with my fireball ability, the usual short pain-received grunt was replaced with a high-pitched cry of anguish. Finally, it was over. The Grenier was exterminated. Lotus didn't state the mission was complete, but the waypoint update of the exit. Thoroughly creeped out by the experience, I set off to the exit, now actively skipping loot as I rushed to figure out what was going on. As I reached the deployment zone, the ending scene started as normal, the scoreboard popping up with my experience, and I watched the infested Emperor climb into the receiver for boarding 10 on the strange flat craft they used. And then suddenly, an infested's face popped onto the screen where Lotus usually appears. Remind me a lot of the responses when fighting the Golem boss, and a deep, gravelly voice filled my speakers. Excellent work, Reborn. Our influence will flow through the stars, and it is all thanks to you. As soon as the game changed loading, the entire computer cut out, making me jump from the overrush of tension. Now, before you suddenly mock this, the reason was actually mundane. I felt for having a rather hard-to-ventilate laptop for gaming uses. Conveniently, my grinding session turned horror story had overheated the device to the point where it shut down due to overheat. Not good on the device, but at that moment, I wasn't sure it was a bad idea that it did that. After letting the computer cool itself down, I started it back up, and then almost immediately booted up Warframe to see if anything had changed. Surprisingly, I was greeted by an uninfested Ember on my arsenal screen, and my revive counter had gone down by 1. But otherwise, everything I had picked up and done during that strange situation had stayed the same. I eventually posted a thread in the forum requesting if anybody else had experienced the situation, only to receive several remarks about the grade of what I had been smoking and so on. That response eventually made its way to the thread, leading to a remark on, while the situation I described wasn't coded into the game, the premise was interesting, that I should be commended for my creativity. What really happened? I still don't know. I still play the game, and I've never got the same reaction happen again. But even still, a part of me can't forget the last phrase spoken by the infested, as if for a moment I had tread into their world. Now, what do I think about this creepypasta? It's actually pretty good. There are a few cliches here and there, but it's nothing to kill the experience. I do like how they didn't really go on about how they got the game. A lot of creepypastas do that, and it's just kind of boring. It either leads to a really weird or boring payoff, or nothing at all. A good example of this would be the Kill Waker. I don't know if any of you have read or heard it before, but the main character in that story gets the game from a garage sale, and nothing really comes of it. But yeah, this creepypasta about Warframe is pretty good, and using the infested faction in Warframe is a very good way to do a Warframe creepypasta, because they are quite, well, creepy. And I feel they lend credence to some sort of creepypasta like this good. Although it was a bit, I guess, short. Like it was a decent length, but it felt like it could have been longer. Like it would have been better if it were longer. It felt like it could have been the start to a bit more lengthier creepypasta. But other than that, you know, it's pretty good. I'd recommend you guys go give it a read. It'll be in the description. And yeah, that's really all for now. Bye bye.